and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Good evening, Exeter, and welcome to the February 22nd, 2022, that's 2/22/22, Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. Before we introduce the board and get into our agenda, we do have two board interviews that we will conduct downstairs in the wheelwright room. So we will hope to be back promptly at 7 to begin the regular meeting. Good evening again, everybody. The board conducted 2 board and committee interviews down in the wheelwright room, commencing at around 6:45. And now we are back. We welcome you again to the February 22nd, 2022 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. I'd like to introduce the board. To my right, Selectwoman Lovey Roundtree-Olaf. Good evening.
Good evening.
And also to my right, our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
To my left, Clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Good evening.
Good evening.
And all the way to my left, Town Manager, Mr. Rustine. Good evening.
Good evening.
And our Recording Secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening. And we also have respective town staff with us this evening, and we welcome all of you watching at home. We'll begin tonight with public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to come and make comment to the Select Board. We do ask that if your comments do pertain to one of the agenda items, you wait until that comes up on the agenda. I'll pause for a moment to see if there's any public comment, and also look on Zoom. So seeing none, we'll move on. There are no proclamations or recognitions this evening. So I would look to the board to review the Select Board meeting minutes of Monday, February 7th, 2022. And at this time, I would ask if there are any revisions or amendments to the minutes. Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the Exeter Select Board meeting minutes of Monday, February 7th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We do not have any appointments this evening, so we'll jump right into our discussion items, the first of which is a COVID-19 update. And we have our Fire Chief Wilking here, as well as our Health Officer, Mr. Murray. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Select Board. Russ. Eric Wilking, Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director. And as always, it's fun to have good news. As many have watched, both locally and nationally, the COVID numbers continue to trend in a positive direction. The past week, as we provided in the report, Exeter saw 70 residents test positive. Some of the things we spoke of at the last meeting was the data that was going to be pushed out through the state. We're still getting the data. We're still getting positivity rates, hospitalizations, obviously deaths as they pertain. They tend to come in packets or piles, so 3 or 4 days instead of 1 day at a time. But we are able to pull the data necessary to keep this up to date. So 70 tests. As we ended last week, we saw some really positive news. As we started through the week, we saw only 5 people in Exeter test positive Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, and then, of course, after the report's printed, 10 on Friday. Mm-hmm. And now we've had that stretch of 4 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we have had no data. So probably 11 o'clock tonight, we'll see how the weekend fared. But pulling it all together, I think generally, the town, the region, the state are doing much better than obviously they were 2 or 3 months ago.
Good.
To the extent that our cases are 2683. I was speaking with James offline before the meeting, and that for towns our size, comparatively speaking, we're still doing very well when you compare ourselves to Hampton, Hooksett, Wyndham. Towns of our population, they have hundreds, if not thousands, more positive cases than we've had. So residents have heeded the warnings, and our vaccination rate speaks for itself. But that's where we are there. I posted the health officer report with mine, and if I indulge you, I'd prefer to have James kind of cover his own material. And I noticed in the packet, you've got material from the hospital, as well as some other things. So lots to talk about as far as what the town, where the town's moving and at what speed. And I think the hospital and James can shed some light on that. And
Perfect.
if you have questions of me, I'll obviously be hanging out in the back.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Murray?
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So over the past week, last week anyway, the health department was getting a large increase in calls, emails regarding the mask regulation. We had some other towns, cities in New Hampshire begin to drop their regulations as well with a few. We have Nashua and Manchester ending at the end of February. The hospital, as of last week, gave their last report to us as public officials. As of Thursday, they only had one person in the hospital for COVID-19. They're moving their mask requirements or mask recommendations to those individuals who are unvaccinated or at a heightened risk due to health issues, and when they cannot maintain appropriate social distancing. So with the current trends available, the information we have, the Exeter Health Department is still recommending wearing masks when appropriate, especially for unvaccinated or high-risk individuals. We're expecting the CDC to make a change to their mask recommendations probably this week as well. They announced a couple weeks ago they'd be looking to change their guidance, and as of last week, still nothing yet. That's all I have for the moment, pending any questions.
Are there any questions for either Mr. Murray or Chief Wilken?
Do you know the vaccination rate of the state? Is it still under 60%?
The state, I'm not sure of. I can get back to you with that information, but I know it hasn't been moving much recently.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions? Chief?
Just really quick, and this is in your packet, it's about 56%, and I think I have no data to dispute that one way or the other. So if the state's pushing out through their legislative summary about 56, a little over 56% statewide, so.
I thought it was.
Anything else, Mr. Murray? Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
No other questions, right? Thank you very much. Okay, our next discussion item is the welfare guidelines update. Mr. Dean, I'm sorry, sir. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Jeff Bouvier, One Hillside Ave. I'm wondering if the board is tonight going to make a decision on the mask mandate or not, based on all the evidence, all the data, all the other towns, et cetera, and so on.
Well, the mask regulation is set to exhaust March 21st.
Correct, I understand that.
I mean, obviously, we can discuss it if the board feels compelled.
It's just excuse me, the data kind of speaks for itself at this point. And, following all the other towns, other states, what everyone's doing at this point, especially for people like myself who are triple vaccinated, it's... Yeah. So I'm just wondering if Exeter is going to do what, follow the lead of most other towns, most other cities, and finally end the indoor mandate.
Again, the mask regulation exhausts on the 21st. We meet again, the select board meets again on March 14th. We have school vacation coming up next week.
I'd be happy to discuss it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd propose that we end the mask mandate.
Any further discussion?
I have to agree with Councilman Ranchiola. If I feel more comfortable than I have been meeting in the State House, still distanced and masked. But, I don't know when that's going to end, but I'm feeling more comfortable around town, and I can still wear a mask if I feel like it.
Exactly. Anybody who wants to wear them can wear them, period. I have no problem with that. And nobody should.
Selectwoman Coward? Okay. Mr. Murray?
To that end, if I may. Excuse me, sir.
Sure.
As we did last time, I think it might be prudent, given this conversation, that we move back to a recommendation. In following most of the other towns, if they have decided to get rid of their mandates or regulations, they move back to a recommendation when and where appropriate. And of course, support businesses and, individuals that would like to continue wearing masks.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
And so you can come back up if you'd like.
No, I'll let you guys make
Okay.
the decision.
All right. And you don't have a comment? Okay. I guess the only comment I would make, and I agree with you. We're all tired of wearing the masks, and obviously, I like you, I'm triple vaxxed, as is my family. It's an individual choice as to whether you want to continue wearing them indoors if there's no longer any mandates or regulations in case here in Exeter. My only concern is we do have school vacation next week. There's a school vacation this week for bordering states. Bordering states are visiting our state. And next week, many families will be going to other vacation destinations. And we saw the last time when there wasn't a mask regulation, there was a big school vacation, we saw numbers surge upon the kids returning to school. That doesn't mean it's going to happen this time because, again, the virus surge, the Omicron virus has people are vaccinated, but still there's that unknown. I guess the biggest concern for me, where I'm really struggling, is we have an election on March 8th.
And that's exactly what I've heard as far as, I've been in this town.
Yep.
I've been in this town for about 25 years, and I know a lot of people in this town, and that's what I've heard, that you do not want to get rid of it before the election.
I'm just speaking for myself. I'm thinking of the election. I'm thinking of poll workers who are in the Tuck building for 15, 16 hours,
Yep.
folks that are coming to vote.
And they're more than welcome to wear an
course.
N95 respirator.
Of course. And that's my struggle. I mean, and I'm not saying, I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but in my head, I was looking at, keeping the regulation through the election, and then the board could revisit it on the 14th, a week before it
And again,
exhausts.
as the selectman, you're in charge of anything that is a town building. If you want, you can say for the election for that building, we still require masks. But for the rest of the town, you don't need to.
I suppose, Mr. Dean, there's precedent set where before we passed the mask the extension of the mask regulation in December, back in November, we did say town buildings and town meetings, committee meetings. So, to the gentleman's point, if the board was inclined to lift the mask regulation, we could still keep it for town buildings through the election. That's an option.
I agree. I think we can still have that option in addition to the non-mask wear option for the separate entrance.
Right,
and
of course.
we're talking about people having to wear a mask for 20 minutes when they're inside the building or when they're standing outside the building. And, the hope is that then they'll actually wear the mask,
Yeah.
even appropriately when in the building, since it's not going to be
Right.
forced throughout the weeks upcoming. I just think we need to be realistic about what's happening, and the difference between now versus then is that a lot of the children that we were concerned about have been vaccinated since the last time we had this discussion.
I agree.
Well, and there's room in the ER.
And, yeah.
I mean, we can get dramatic about it, but yes, there's room in the ER.
I don't know that it's being dramatic.
I mean, it's just let's not be, let's not throw out statements like there's room in the ER, because that's not helping the conversation. We're trying to have a conversation.
And just to let you know, Molly, this is the God's honest truth. My sister is an infectious disease doctor in New York City. Okay, so I fully understand what doctors have gone through.
Right.
I fully understand
My
that,
husband
man.
is a doctor.
Yes.
He's been in the hospital since this has begun. He's
Yes.
never not been in the hospital.
My sister's actually a
Our whole family's had to
virologist.
deal with this from the day
So
one.
I fully understand. They are beyond their breaking point. She
Right.
has said they cannot take another wave, and I fully understand.
And I think that is a difference for me between then and now. So I think, the other thing, I totally agree with you, Selectman Papakos-Sidis. I am worried about, there are volunteers who are signing up for 15-hour shifts in an enclosed space. And I do think that we have the flexibility to, honestly, are the school, is the school requiring masks, which I don't even know that we would have jurisdiction over.
There are a lot of schools, and I don't know about the public schools, but there are a lot of private schools who have released the mask mandate. We are not the outlier. This would not be the only town, the only group, the only population of people who do not have a mask mandate. I think what we do is we regulate it and say, for particular circumstances like voting day, we're asking that people come in masked to protect those who have volunteered for this position. I think if we just generally say we're keeping the mask mandate in order because we're worried about a particular date that we all have to be, sorry, that's just not my phrase. If we're saying that we're going to push this because we ourselves and those who are volunteering for a particular event in town, I do not think that is fair. I'd rather have an honest conversation about it and say, listen, we'd like to get rid of the mask mandate, but we would also like people to respect the fact that we have volunteers and others who do not have a choice to be indoors on voting day. So we are asking you to do X, Y, and Z. Because this will not be the last time. I highly doubt it'll be the last time in the next couple of years where we'll have to revisit this. So if so, let's set the standard of how we want this to function if we don't have a mask mandate in order a year from now or 2 years from now, and we still have waves of the flu and waves of different pandemic sort of, remnances. But I think that's the only realistic thing to do. Otherwise, we're just going to be battling with people who show up not wanting to wear the mask. Then what?
And I think your key word is respect.
Right.
That's how I've looked at it personally. Businesses in town that want me to wear my mask, I wear my mask. That's respect. There are businesses in town that, nothing against the select board, but have said, we're not going to enforce it. And as long as they're comfortable with that, I won't wear a mask. It's respect, and that's exactly what it comes down to.
So, go ahead.
I mean, I am fine with ending the regulation with the provisions that businesses who want to have a mask ordinance are still able to do that. I am also fine with ending the mask regulation with the exception of town meeting day. Because I don't think that is not a fair risk that I want to shoulder, asking people to volunteer for the town and then not doing it in a way that is safe.
I think we all agree with you on that. I don't think there's any question about that.
Perfectly reasonable. Yep.
And even if between now and then, even if the schools were to lift their mask ordinance, where it is a school building, despite the fact that it's a school building, the town is using it that day with the town moderator for an election. So the town, whatever the town comes up with would supersede whatever the schools are doing on that particular day.
Yeah, the select board has full control over any town building. That's the RSA's. I fully understand that.
But Mr. Dean, how would that work? I'm trying to craft in my head how you single out one day.
Well, it's a town building.
I think you'd have to just get creative with the motion and declare the town election day.
With the understanding.
Regulation would come back into place or stay in place.
With the understanding, of course, that nobody will be prohibited from voting. There'll still be the entrance for those that don't want to wear a mask, just as all of the other elections we've had over the last 2 years.
Exactly.
I believe the moderator's planning on setting up the polling place just as it was last year.
Okay.
I think we could even base it off of vaccination percentages for the state or for our local community. If the vaccination rate for a particular flu, pandemic is above 20%, then the select board can state whether or not masks will be required within the building for the safety of those who are working for the beneficiary of, I don't figure out the wording of it, but I don't think it's that far-fetched to say if we don't have 100% vaccination or 80% vaccination or 90%, then we are doing what we can so that we can continue with business as needed while still protecting those who are doing the work that's needed.
Is that a motion?
I guess, yes.
I'm not really clear
Yeah.
But it's just away from what we have right now, just because we have a
Regulation.
regulation in place. So what we need to do just today, I think, is tighten the information.
Yes, please.
Move to, lift our mask regulations to the following recommendations, or following conditions, that we go back to the mask recommendations listed on the town website, that we require masks after the town meeting on March 8th, providing separate entrance and balloting for those who do not wish to wear a mask, and revisit this as necessary. So effective date.
Tomorrow? February 23rd. Did you get that, Joanna?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And I would encourage, I spoke with the economic developer today and asked him, what businesses have been communicating to him, and, he said there's concern on both sides. There's businesses that are concerned about lifting it, some concerned about keeping it. So keeping that in mind, I would just ask the public, as you said, sir, if you go into an establishment that requires masks, please wear the mask, and respect the business wishes. And I want to thank the board for taking into consideration the March 8 election. And sir, thank you for speaking up. I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Good discussion. Thank you. Okay, next we have a update on the welfare guidelines. We've had an opportunity to read in our packet the updates that are being proposed. Mr. Dean, did you want to introduce this?
Sure. Our Welfare Human Services Administrator, Pam McElroy, is in the audience tonight with us. She diligently updated the welfare guidelines. These would be adopted by the Select Board for use. And basically, we're following the NHMA guidelines that they promulgate, and we change some wording around and add some wording here and there. But basically, we're following the NHMA model. And there are three core changes to the guidelines. One is that the burial cremation amount has been raised from $750 to $2,000. That's been something we've been hearing a lot from the funeral directors in town, that the cost or the payback is not meeting their cost of doing business. So we're recommending that change. Also, the record retention clause has been changed to 7 days to reflect the state law, what we need to comply with. And then there are several, oops, sorry.
7 years.
7 years, I'm sorry. I wrote 7 days, apologies. So 7 years for record retention, and then the definition of housing has been codified in the guidelines.
Selectwoman Gilman, I knew you had a couple comments.
Yeah, they're just small things, really grammatical.
Okay. As you look, I'll look over here. Any comments or questions, revisions?
Not to the guidelines, but for the programs more in general. So maybe we can save that for a discussion for afterwards.
Pam, did you want to say anything while Selectwoman Gilman finds her? You don't have to.
No, it's all, updating to, when was the last time they were updated, like 10 years ago?
The last update, I believe, was 2015.
Well, still a long time ago.
That was when we had an interim Human Services Administrator after Sue Benoit retired.
I'm high maintenance today. Well, when I find it, we can come back to
Well,
it.
because I had some questions too, so do you want to?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't have any questions.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Okay, should we adopt the guidelines first?
Julie's got some.
Okay. I mean, I have questions more in terms of like an update of holistically, how is the program growing? What kind of resources are we using? How can we get more information on the sources that you have, the funding sources that you have available, how many people we're helping in town, all of those sorts of things. Can we have an update that doesn't get so specific that it would risk, breaking confidentiality or, asking those things? Because the thing, I would imagine that this is a hard time for people. And I think that we have the ability to help. So I am having more questions about the program holistically, I guess.
I do a monthly report that is submitted to the town manager with monthly numbers regarding the dollars spent, as well as the number of residents that have been aided in the different categories, whether it be housing or heat or electricity. So I can provide those numbers to you if you'd like.
That would be great. And then is there also an accounting of like, this is how many people applied, this is how many people we were able to help? Like, what is that? What are those numbers?
I do have numbers of how many phone calls and emails I get from regarding inquiries from individuals versus agencies. All of those numbers are shared in the BRC meetings. So
which happen at a very short part of the...
Right.
Is there a way that we could get an update more frequently?
Sure.
That would be
Maybe seasonally.
Yeah, I wouldn't say monthly's too, like quarterly. Would quarterly be? Would you?
I mean, sure. I guess I don't have a sense of what the volume is. Is it like, are you getting calls all day? Are there so many people who are calling about the same thing that don't fit in a bucket that get services? Are there other ways that we could creatively think about helping people who do get turned down because they don't meet certain income requirements or, things in our regulations? Those are the things that I'm thinking about.
Sure. Part of my job is to direct them to agencies that may be able to help where the town is not able to help. So I'm very aware of the assistance that's available out there, whether it's town-related or other agencies. So I do direct them where they may need to go.
And then is there any follow-up to be like, okay, so I told you about these places. Were you able to get help? Were you not able to get through? Like, what does that follow-up look like?
Yes, I have files, which of course are confidential.
Sure.
No one sees those files. But I do keep very strict notes on date and time that they called, everything that we discussed, what was recommended. And I do follow up to make sure that they received the help that they needed, or if there's something that I can't help with that maybe they need assistance from an attorney, I can refer them to New Hampshire Legal Aid. There are a lot of opportunities for them to receive assistance.
And there are also different assistance groups, programs like that we actually receive funds from, like the one from Wentworth.
All of the agencies that we work with through the Human Services Recommendations Committee, I go through those agencies first and foremost. Because the town grants funds to those agencies, I make sure that we tap into those agencies as much as we can before I go to other agencies. But with COVID, obviously, Molly, you're right. There have been a lot more phone calls and emails and requests. So it's been extremely busy. There have been months where I've received almost 600 calls in 1 month. And that's just individuals, that's not including agencies. And that also doesn't include, town manager phone calls or regular town phone calls. So it's been very, very busy. But yes, I've been able to work through all of them, get them what they need. There are some that are denied. And there are multiple reasons why they would be denied, whether it's that their income is too high or we're not able to assist with the type of assistance that they need. But in that instance, I try to offer another agency that might be able to help them.
Got it. I think it would be really helpful to have a more of a better understanding of these are the services that are available. Here's the agencies that I'm in touch with. Here's the outside sources of funding that we can direct people to if they don't meet these certain qualifications. I would be really interested in having that scheduled relatively soon.
Okay.
Because I sit on the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, and we have abatements, a ton of abatement requests. Mm-hmm. There are energy costs that are exorbitant. So this is happening. It would be really good to have a better understanding.
Okay, and is there a date that you would like an updated report by?
So, and you're looking for data, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we understand your files are confident. We're not
right.
interested.
No,
We're
I
looking
have
for
all the data already.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Dean, Pam, when it's convenient for you, in the next couple of meetings, if you could put together the data, and I think before we determine the frequency, let's take a look at what we have, and then maybe Selectwoman Cowan and everyone else can maybe refine what the expectations are for our interests, so that you're not, there's no sense in having you issue reports if we don't need them or they're not
Sure.
what we're looking for. So is that fair, Selectwoman Cowan, to start there?
And it sounds like you already do one, so I'm not meaning to add to your workload, but if there's something that is already produced that goes to...
Honestly, that's what I was going to give you. That's what I'll produce to you. I may put it in a different format, whereas you said quarterly. I think with COVID, though, I think it would make sense for you to see the past couple years.
Sure.
Because it's very different than what it was.
How difficult would it be for you to prepare, and I don't want you to go back, but let's say 2019, just to benchmark what it was.
I do have all of those numbers,
that'd be really interesting.
From the day, or I should say, 2 months after I started working here in July of 2019. I believe I started taking actual numbers and all. I want to say in October or November.
Okay.
There were a few numbers beforehand that the person before me kept, but there was an interim person in between, and so it was a little difficult. But I do have some numbers.
6-month benchmark prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I do have one question about the workfare program. Have you ever placed anybody into a workfare program in town? I don't want to know.
No, I have not. And from what I understand, it really wasn't done.
It looks
mostly because working within the town, everything goes through HR, and there are confidentiality situations there. So it gets pretty deep, and I'm not quite sure that our our welfare department, being me, could really handle that, to be honest.
No, I wondered, I just had never heard of it being used here, and just wondered if...
I have never used it myself, no.
Considered. Okay.
Have you found your revisions?
No, they weren't revisions, they were questions, but I think we've been asking them along, so.
And Pam is welcome. She, of course, would meet with any board member at any time. If you had questions for her individually or wanted to sit down and have a conversation about the program.
Of course. Pam, one last question. The Human Service Funding Committee that meets, I know that when the BRC approves the sum of money, then the committee, goes through, to which agencies the money's distributed. But do they also look at other organizations that you use as a resource to accept funds? Do they look at those as well, or do they just look at the organizations that are seeking funding?
We have an application, so they look at whoever has submitted an application.
Okay.
If there are other agencies that would like to submit applications, they're very welcome to.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I do think that there's a difference between human services and welfare. I know we usually group it together and call it human services. I find that human services is really more about the funding program, so that's the town granting the money to the agencies, whereas the welfare department is really about the individual residents or visitors to the town.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for clarifying.
All right. And have you found that the subcommittee that works with you is solid, or you expect it to?
They're wonderful. They know exactly what they're talking about. They have excellent discussion during our meetings, which is really only once a year. It's not a continuous committee that meets on a regular basis. They decide which agencies will receive certain funding, and then once the budget is passed, I take care of the contracts with each agency. And when it comes time for new applications, I send out the new applications and receive those back. And then when it comes time for our funding meeting again, I have all of the information together and present that to the Human Services Funding Committee.
It's good that you're proactive in reaching out to the groups who aren't always, because a lot of them are volunteers, they're not always as organized as they want to be. Okay, I think that's it.
That's it. Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can I just take a special note here while we're talking about this?
Please.
I wanted to thank Pam for all of her efforts on the town report. It was coming later in my report, but we have gotten the town reports in, and I know she puts in a load of work to make sure that that document is presented as effectively and as well presented as it is. So I just wanted to make sure that we recognized her tonight.
Thank you.
I said thank you for all our efforts there.
And I must say, turn it around fairly quickly. Thank you.
Under budget.
Even better. Mr. Dean, would you like a motion to adopt the revised guidelines?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to adopt the Town of Exeter Human Services Welfare Guidelines as revised, effective January 2022.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Pam, thank you again.
Thank you.
Selectwoman Cowan, you have an update for us along with Mr. Glowacki, I presume?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I would just like to really, it's good to be back with the Communications Committee. I've been there for 2 meetings now, following the resignation of Selectman Brown. So that's been fun to take over the Communications Committee. And I think there were a couple of things that we wanted to flag, and then I'll turn it over to Bob, who has some, just website updates, good government, town election information that I think that it's really important that people can see and know where to find this information. And I did want to say that the Communications Committee, which has traditionally provided information to the papers summarizing the warrant articles, we would like to turn that over to your office, Mr. Dean. If you can just send out a press release that has all of the information to the paper so that people know, because The Communications Committee has determined that your summaries are wonderful.
Oh, nice.
And we
Thank
should, we should link to them and use them and not be
Okay.
duplicative in our work.
Very
So I would love to task that for you and ask that you share that information because I think it's a really good summary.
Thank you.
And
We'll do
then-
that.
Great. And then Bob, if you can just talk us through a little bit of the information that you've put on the website.
Sure. So, and I'll give a lot of credit to Andy Kohler, the town clerk, who kind of, between last election and this election, like really revamped her entire election site. So, for anyone who's watching at home, you can go to exeternh.gov/elections, and it's like you'll find all the information there from, absentee ballots to, where the polling places, SAU 16 candidates, town candidates, the town warrant, everything, the fact sheet that Russ prepared. So I would just, direct people to that kind of, there used to be a few different spots and now it's all in one location. Thanks to Andy putting that together. And then we, made some tweaks here and there to make it look nicer and stuff like that. Some other real quick updates was we had a really good work session with a few town staff, Russ, Pam, Tricia from Public Works, and a few communications committee members, and MuniCode, who is our website vendor, and it was our design workshop. So hopefully in about 2 weeks or a little under 2 weeks, we'll have our first look at what a new ExeterNH.gov would look like. So it'll be exciting to see that. We went through a lot of different feedback meetings and packets, design packets, and all these different processes to try and, make sure we're getting the best thing out of the site that we can get. So that's coming down the line, and we're meeting with the police and fire chief to talk about the texting service, which they have, and maybe, what's a way we can kind of dip our toes in the water with that and not, rush into something. So that's kind of all I had for that. I don't know if you had any questions about any of those items.
And just that the My Exeter app is now no longer.
I just removed it from my phone.
Yeah. I think if it's on your phone, feel free, go ahead and if you're for the viewers at home, uninstall it. You can't download it anymore in the Apple or Google Play Store. But only other one quick thing on a side note, we did get a call to the TV station a few minutes ago that when we had the microphone issue, no one heard the motion, and they were wondering if I don't know. I just wanted to let you guys know in case you guys wanted to just let people know what that motion was, because unfortunately it was missed on the recording, the entire thing. So
On the mask recommendation?
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Joanna, would you mind, could we step up and read the motion, please?
And while we're waiting for Joanna, I would just like to give a shout out to Martha leading our communications committee. She's done some really good work. That report was really excellent, and I think has really focused the work that we're doing, and just a huge thank you to Bob and to Andy for their work, because I think one of the major things that we hear is people don't know when the elections are, and they don't know what's on them, and they don't know who's running, and it is very clear.
Thank you. So this was in response to, we had a microphone issue. This is the motion that was made relative to the mask regulation. So our recording secretary, Joanna Bartel.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman moved to lift our mask regulation and go back to a mask recommendation with the following conditions. We require masks at town meeting on March 8th, providing a separate entrance for those who do not wish to wear a mask. We will revisit this as necessary. This is effective February 23rd. It was seconded by Ms. Cowan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna.
Bob, I have one question, and maybe Russ, this might be for you, but when the Communications Committee came before us, I believe it was the end of the summer with their report, one of the things they found was that our website had other capabilities that we'd paid for that we weren't using. So just so that I'm clear, what you just talked about that you've been working on, was that part of identifying the capabilities of what we've already paid for?
So kind of in the design workshop, I've been working with community code to try and revisit some of those. It's kind of, we're doing those in tandem. They're not necessarily related. One of them that we're trying to expand more quickly is just a keyword search, because a lot of times maybe people aren't happy with the results when they search for something on our site, and we can kind of type in, a set of keywords related to voting, ballot, absentee ballot, voting, election, and it will automatically send them to the elections page rather than kind of using algorithms to show stuff. So we'll be working with the different departments to try to identify, what's the most searched terms or their hot button items on their website, and trying to refine that. There's other things, a projects module where kind of we'll have one place where all town projects, which could be very broad, everything from CIP to completed pavement, projects, would be in one spot. So kind of if people wanted to check in on the status of it, whether it's, been approved, budgeted, all those types of things. So most of those are within DPW. So I'm working with Tricia Allen to kind of it's basically just like adding a tag to those pages that already exist, putting in a little bit more info, and that way in the future people will be able to go to exeternh.gov/projects, and it'll just have a list and a map actually of where all these things are, the status of it, completion dates, and people can get updates there as well. So there's a few things like that we're trying to work in there and explore. And my hope is that when we're launching the new website, we can kind of have some of that stuff ready to go, so that, it's, the more new and improved website altogether. So.
And this is all within the capabilities that the website has presently, correct?
Yeah, like we've had them for a while. It's just, without diving too deep into it, we didn't really know about all these different things. So we're trying to, make sure we're using our money's worth for the website for sure.
There's that's what I was looking for. I hear launch a new website and I see $, so thank you.
Yeah. And then just real quick on the elections thing, again, just popped into my head. In case people didn't want to read the packets and things like that, there are a lot of short videos on YouTube. If you just search Exeter TV on YouTube, there's a little previews of all of the articles, and in the description of those videos are links to the project pages or the packet if people then want to go and read more. So if you don't like reading a lot like me, that's why I got into video. You can go and watch these really short video clips that kind of give an overview of those different warrant articles.
I've seen some of them and they're very well done. Thank you.
All the department heads and other staff did a great job kind of concisely explaining stuff. So it's sometimes hard to do with these complex topics.
I have a question. In redesigning the website, is it possible to actually get the departments to work with the committees they represent to see what they want to have posted on their webpage? Because there's several things that I would like to be on the HDC and Heritage Commission webpage, and I don't even know who to ask.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, again, like something in tandem that we're trying to work towards in this. It was kind of outlined that this work was already started, and that's the report the committee did, but we're trying to do kind of a best practices kind of policy type thing, more like best practices, and in that hopefully we'll have some workflow charts for both staff and committees. I know some committees have like a staff person, so generally they go through that person. Maybe some of them that don't can funnel stuff to myself, or we'll kind of have to figure out who that designated person is and try and get that stuff out there. And I'm happy to work with any of the committees to try and promote the work that they're doing, because oftentimes it'll just get uploaded as a PDF and stuck on the page, but that really isn't getting it out there.
Right.
So there's other things we can use, other tools on the website that we can use. So in tandem with all that work that's going on, we're trying to slowly develop kind of this, it'll basically be like checklists, like, all right, I have this piece of information, whether it's an event or a report, how can I disseminate this? Website, social media, newsletter, whatever we have to go through.
Thanks.
And as we know, part of the rationale behind appointing Mr. Glowacki as our communications coordinator was to address exactly those kinds of issues, that there was a single stop that somebody could go to have Bob flesh out the information, what it is, and as he says, try to follow best practices, but with the idea that we're trying to get out more information,
Right.
so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
And if you guys come up with anything or think, especially with the election coming up, if there's something missing that you're not sure where it is, let me know and we can try and make it more prominent in the various places we're getting info out these days.
Terrific. Bob, thank you for everything.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
And Selectwoman Cowan, thank you for that update from the Communications Committee. Okay, next we have the assessing contract for 2022. Mr. Dean, did you want to speak to this briefly?
Yeah, actually, I think I will call on our Assistant Town Manager, Melissa.
Okay.
Have her come up, Melissa Roy. And I will introduce the topic just by saying the assessing contract has been rewritten to more accurately reflect what's going on in today's assessing office. And that's what the board has before you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Melissa.
Good evening. We have reorganized a little bit. We have taken our deputy tax assessor and reclassified her to assessor, and in doing so are able to reorganize our MRI contract. Just to bring you guys up to speed, it's a contract from 2022 to 26, and the cost of the contract is split out through 5 years, which guarantees our compliance with DRA and valuation cycles and all of that stuff. So we are seeing a savings by reclassifying Janet, who went through all of the appropriate educational requirements, and we supported her reclassification. So we expect, you'll see on page 4, these will be the cost changes for FY22, 23, 24, 25, 26. We will also be participating in a mid-cycle revaluation to review the condos and manufactured homes, because right now they're pretty out of whack. And what will happen is if we don't do a mid-cycle revaluation, when we do our is it every 3 years? Excuse me. The major revaluation, they could get hit with a very, very large tax increase. So we're trying to mitigate that, and that was a recommendation by MRI. That cost has been rolled into this contract and spread out over the 5 years of the contract.
Thank you.
And I think we've talked before about the condominiums and the manufactured homes as being outliers in today's valuation ratio, which is at 80%, 79, actually a little bit below that. So that's work that really needs to get done.
Yeah. It's happened before when they've gotten, I think we've done the same thing to manufactured homes. We're going to get a huge whack, and so we did a mid-cycle evaluation of those.
Do you have any questions or comments, Selectwoman Gilman?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to also point out, Mr. Chair, that these contracts that we have with the assessors, they can be actually terminated with 30 days notice.
Okay.
So we're always in basically a cycle. If we decide to make a change at some point for whatever reason, we have that flexibility.
Okay. So question for either you or Melissa, or both, but looking at the next 5 years and the sum of money for the work being done, where we've reclassified Janet, have we looked at whether or not it would be cost efficient to hire somebody to assist Janet rather than contract out to MRI? And if so, would that be a cost savings to the town, or would it cost the town more?
Sure. So right now, in order to have someone in the office and also to assist Janet as well as people out in the field, the cost using MRI is a greater savings. We're not participating in healthcare costs from those contracts and the like. It is something we can certainly review each year to make sure that that continues to be the case. But right now, this is the more financially beneficial set up for the town.
Great. Well, I appreciate you both looking into that. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, Mr. Dean, I believe you need a motion
Yes, I need authority from the board to sign the agreement.
So I would seek a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the professional services agreement dated January 1st, 2022, to retain professional consulting services for the town of Exeter to be provided by Municipal Resources, Inc., MRI.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing,
Did you list the years that this contract was for?
Yes.
That's okay, sorry, I was listening for different parts of it. Thank you. Go ahead.
okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Then, Mr. Chair, a motion for the partial update section, which is actually a separate agreement dated March 1st.
And that's on page...
It is page after page 9, so it's the first page after that. It's not numbered.
I see, okay.
The first page isn't numbered anyway.
And I would seek a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the professional services agreement partial update to retain the services provided by Municipal Resources, Inc., MRI.
And authorize the town manager.
I said at the beginning.
I'm not hearing you. I'll move that.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Okay. Moving into regular business, we have several tax abatements, credits, and exemptions. And Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Without objection from members, I would move the 2 veterans credits as they are in the same amount for map 27, lot 12, unit 8, and map 33, lot 9, in the amount of $500 each for the year 2022.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a solar exemption for map 97, lot 9, in the amount of $21,000 for tax year 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a solar exemption for map 95, lot 7, unit 12, lot 79, excuse me, unit 12, in the amount of $11,500 for tax year 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a solar exemption for map 65, lot 169, in the amount of $12,000 for the tax year 2022.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve elderly exemption for map 104, lot 79, unit 612, in the amount of $152,251 for tax year 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve an elderly exemption for map 87, lot 14, unit 20A, in the amount of $236,251 for tax year 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve an elderly exemption for map 104, lot 79, unit 226, in the amount of $152,251 for the tax year 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to approve a tax abatement for map 110, lot 2, unit 81, in the amount of $35.25 for tax year 2020.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a tax abatement for lot 104, map 104, unit 71, in the amount of $3,570.86 for the tax year 2021.
It's the 3,507.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
70.
Oh,
See, 3,507. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a tax abatement for map 104, lot 71, unit 2, unit 1. Sorry.
Unit 1.
Yeah, unit 1 for $1,138.07 for tax year 2021.
And Selectwoman Cowan second. And any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a tax abatement for map 104, lot 7, unit 2, in the amount of $1,198.10 for tax year 2021.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
And Mr. Chair, I move to approve tax abatement for map 104, lot 71, unit 3, in the amount of $1,308.55 for the tax year 2021.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
And I move to approve tax exemption for map 104, lot 71, unit 4, in the amount of $1,491.02 for the tax year 2021.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
And finally, Mr. Chair, I move to approve tax abatement for map 95, lot 75, in the amount of $449.80 for the tax year 2021 for fire.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have a request to waive the interest on a property, and it looks like it is map 69, lot 3, unit 3. This applicant purchased the property in October. They closed in October, did not receive property tax invoice, they claim, till they got a notice this week being last week when the email was written. They took care of the payment immediately, and there's an interest in the amount of $68.40 that is recurred due to the late payment. They're requesting consideration for waiving this since they did not receive the bill for the very first property tax invoice. And I would open it up to discussion, or if not, a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to waive the interest for,
It's, right.
no, I'm looking at
Yeah.
the parcel, yeah. Map 63, lot 3, unit 3, in the amount of $68.40.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
Just
Seeing
a
none-
quick correction, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It's map 69.
Oh, thank you, map 69, lot 3, unit 3.
And it's $68.40, as you said.
Yeah.
A motion, I seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Mr. Dean?
Okay, a couple of things to report on. Our finance director's last day was last Friday, and we begun the interview process for a replacement. We had 3 interviews today, and the assistant town manager and myself and finance staff is helping with the recruitment. So that's going along fairly well to start that process. Then we've also begun the bond bank application process. We'll be going out to bond for July, and that means that we have to start that process very early, and we've begun that already. A reminder that some of us have been invited, or all of us, I'm not sure how many, but Riverwoods is having their voter information night tomorrow night, so I'll be attending that. The Route 108 corridor is active again in terms of water and sewer in Stratham, and the reach out came last week, and I attended a meeting on Microsoft Teams just to talk through some of the issues that they're thinking about. And again, a lot of the activity on that will come from the Stratham side of the border, not necessarily us, but we are participating in the conversation. So I'll report back to the board when there's something to report that's tangible. Then I also attended the Chamber of Commerce Economic Forecast last Thursday, and last week I was able to go to Concord on Tuesday Tuesday to testify on HB 398, which is the bill before Senate Finance about the wastewater state aid grants. So hopefully that will bear some fruit in the coming weeks. And that is all I had for tonight.
Thank you. While I have both you and Assistant Manager Roy here, any updates from Congressman Pappas's office or that you know of? No? Okay.
No, I have not had any.
Thank you. Moving to Select Board Committee reports. Selectwoman Rountriola?
I had a busy week last week and I couldn't attend any of the meetings. So.
Selectwoman Cowan?
We gave a presentation about what I was going to talk about.
Fantastic. In the spirit of brevity, thank you. Speaking of brevity, there's the stack of reports next to my left. Selectwoman Gilman, you've been busy.
It'll be fast. For town meetings, I sat with the Conservation Commission and we talked about the trails and work on the, because of the mountain biking is so popular and people are inventing their new trails in different parts, and how are we going to do that without a lot of personnel being involved. And there's this great group, a Facebook group, that involves people from outside of Exeter, and there's like 1,400 people who have volunteered to take care of the trails. And then, so we have a connection, and they're going to report back to the Conservation Commission when they need some kind of support or the projects they've done. And so there was a discussion about, are we going to cut off these little ones? There's a, next time I'll remember the application name, but you can look up all the trails and they all have these funky names and no one remembers how they got these names, but everybody recognizes them. So anyway, that was it. There was they had a full moon snowshoe trekking thing on the 12th, but there was no snow, so they just did a little hike out by the golf club. And the tree committee has an idea about doing a big tree scavenger hunt. Apparently there's a national register of big trees, and Exeter has 10. So they're going to organize something through the Conservation Commission for an event. Now I just wanted to talk about what I did at the States in the last couple of weeks. Quick rundown. My committee, let's see. Oh, no, that's supposed to be one. Never mind that one. Killed 3 bills on different forms of tax exemptions that would have added up to, $55 million statewide, and we would have taken our hit on that too. One of them lowered the elderly age to 60, which means if my husband quit his job, I could get an exemption. Let's see, village district commissioners doesn't really apply to us. The big one was the budget procedures for the Gunstock Area Commission, which has gotten a lot of popularity. There's a little political battle going on between the state delegation of representatives in that county and the way the Gunstock ski resort setup was that it's owned by the town, but works on its own privately as a private business. And the representatives up there want to make a money grab, and so they want to run it, basically. So we killed that one. And a single-family zoning that would mandate that all towns decrease the minimum lot size to less than half an acre. And we found that it was just not ready for prime time. It hadn't considered all parts. And the last one was from the same representative, just limiting the number of parking spaces required per occupied building, basically saying just one car per unit, as opposed to right now we have one car plus one for each bedroom. that was today's work. And that's it. Oh, no, wait, did I talk about the HDC? We had a good meeting last week. Finished up the big projects with the Academy on their project out on 8 Gilman Lane. Really nice, small kind of development of a duplex and a single family that are going to go out behind, off of High Street. And they're going to fill in that blank spot that's right at Portsmouth Avenue. So we had worked with them over several meetings, and so it was really quick last week to approve what they had. And the same thing with the Baptist Church on Front Street. They came in with the final design and the final materials and answered all our questions, and it's going to go ahead. And the last thing is the Heritage Commission met, and we are applying for 2 grants. One is called a mini grant, and it's to pay for membership to the National Association of Preservation Commissions, which has a lot of resources that we could avail ourselves for both those commissions, and also one to re-survey the waterfront commercial historic district from the National Register, because so much has changed since 1980 that we felt it needed to have better representation, and perhaps it won't actually be eligible for the register any longer. And that is it.
Thank you very much. You've been busy, and appreciate the work you're doing for us up at the state as well. I did not have any select board committee reports since we last met, although I did attend the Housing Committee extended an invitation. Mr. Dean and Assistant Manager Roy and Mr. Wynnum attended the first part of their meeting. Was it last Friday?
Yes,
last Friday. Congressman Pappas and his staff came, and it was an interesting conversation.
Yes.
Mr. Dean, did you have something else you wanted to add? You looked over.
No, I just, I know Mr. Sharples was there too.
I beg your pardon, he was. Yep.
So.
Sorry, Dave. Okay. Moving to correspondence, we had several pieces of correspondence regarding masks, which we've addressed that this evening, and we thank everybody that has written to us and continues to write to us, and we look forward to hearing what folks are thinking. It helps us do our work. We also have a notice from Xfinity regarding some small program changing. The board calendar, the select board will meet again on March 14th and also on March 28th. The election, of course, is March 8th, and we'll see everybody there. So with that, I would entertain a motion to enter non-public under RSA 91A:3 2C.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes. We'll move into non-public. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.